It's Blender 5 Demo 2. This is an interior as opposed to an exterior, and I already have the camera set up because we went over that in the last demo. So we're going to do the same thing again. Go to set up everything. Before I switch, let's do a couple things now. Before we switched the shading to GLSL, and then we went to texture view. If I go to texture view right now and I look at this, you'll notice that I can see the lamp, but I can't see anything else. Now, the interesting thing is I held down the mouse button, I actually see the room. And what's happening is this is basically all the polygons that exist are technically one-sided, and then they're being rendered out by two-sided. When you go into texture mode, it's actually showing you accurately where the normals, which is basically the face that you can see, is sticking out, and you can tell that I basically built this from a cube, which is how all of your rooms are going to be. And the first thing you're going to notice is basically if you toggle this on and off, at the instant you go into texture view, all of a sudden all your walls and surfaces are gone. So it's very easy to fix this. It only takes a second, and once you have it done, it's not a problem. So let's I'll just go back to the camera, and let's go through. Now we have the right wall selected. So now I go into edit mode, make sure, hit A to make sure I have that selected, and then over in the toolbar, flip direction, and now that one's done. Exit out. Now we will go and select the back wall. Do the same thing again. Edit mode, A, make sure it's selected, flip direction, now we see that. Edit mode, go to the ceiling, do the same thing with the ceiling, edit mode, A, flip, and then finally we will go grab the floor, and do the same thing again, and now everything is facing inside. Now at this point everything is basically flat, and it's basically what it is it's rendering the true color because there's no shadows at all to be shown. So if we switch over to GLSL, it's pitch black right now, and it's because we don't have light. So we'll go in and add a point light. We'll switch it for this to show you. And at this point you can see if I pull everything up and down, this light properly illuminates the surfaces. Now just to kind of reinforce what can happen if the normals are the wrong way, is if I grab this surface, the floor for instance, and I do edit mode, and I flip the direction, all of a sudden it's pitch black down there. Now the weird thing is if I actually go to move the light, okay, so let's grab the point light I just added, and you move it below the floor, all of a sudden when it's below the floor, it's illuminating the top of the floor and vice versa. So that's how you can tell whether or not your normal is the right way. So at this point, if for some reason you forget and you go into texture view and GLSL and everything is black, and you move your light around, you get this weird inverse optical phenomena. Just do the same thing again of selecting the floor objects or whatever surface it is, hitting edit, and then flipping the direction, and then everything should be fine. So that's the basic setup, and what we want to do is we're going to do multiple parts of this. So we're going to start with the key light, which is basically going to be the light bulb in this lamp. The key light is going to go up and hit the ceiling, and we're going to put a bounce light that's going to shoot down onto the rest of the room, and then a final light to go up to the ceiling, and then we're also going to find out that we need to add a light to make the lamp. So it's a couple steps. So let's take this light that I already created, and let's move it over. I'm going to switch over to wireframe just for a second. So I get this lined up. So I basically want to just get it inside the lamp. And the other thing I want to do with it is right now it's a point light. I want to change it to a spotlight. And the instant I do that, you'll see the spotlight is shooting down, which is going to bias anyway. So I want to do a rotate, and rotate this 180 degrees, draw down control, will snap exactly to 180. And now we can go back into texture view, and you can see we have basically an illuminated part of the ceiling, because that's the only thing that's directly in light. The things we can do with this is we can actually adjust the cone angle So if you want to make it bigger or smaller, and also the blend controls the quality of the edge. So there are two different things to work with. So at this point, if I go render image, I basically just have the ceiling illuminated. So let's make sure we name this key light. And let's go ahead and add a second light, or once again, you can just basically copy this, Shift T, and move this. And now the nice thing about that is I know it's exactly above the light, because basically we want this part, the bounce to line up. So now I need to go back and change this from a spot to a point. And now at this point, now you can see we have some illumination that's taking place. Let me just maximize this viewport so you can kind of see. And we have the fall off and the energy. Now the energy is going to be too high, and it also depends on how intense you want your key light to be. But you want to make sure your key light is brighter than the wall, because these are all white surfaces, with the exception of the floor. So what we can do is we're going to adjust the distance, and you notice as I decrease the distance and clear out the energy, eventually you're going to get to the point that it's brighter up here than it is down there. And that's kind of what we're going for, is basically the light will get dimmer the closer it's getting to the floor. And then depending on what type of mood you want, you can do some interesting things with this playing between the energy and the light to get something that you kind of like and you feel is right. So this is basically the, and the other thing is this light isn't going to cast any specular highlights, so we want to turn that off. And we also want to make sure that ray shadows is off. And like I said, you can play around with this. Right now I have this at an energy of 1.5. So if I do constant, it watches out the whole thing. If I go back to inverse square, you can see the distance. Or you can do more traditional, which would be like set this to 0.4. And then basically just play around with the distance until you get something that you like. So it's kind of up to you. So let's see. So we got this is our key light, and okay, let's rename this. Rename this is and we got that set up. And now we're going to just copy that and put it below the floor. So Shift D once again and put it down exactly where it is, and you want to try to get it lined up. Now the thing that's going to happen when we go to render now, if we look at this, render the image, is basically we have illumination coming from here getting lighter and illumination coming from here. It's basically the wall's flat. Problem is we want the ceiling to get illuminated, because right now there's nothing shining it, but we don't want the walls to get illuminated. So the way that we do this is using layers. So let me first just rename this. This is floor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the floor bounce light, I'm going to move it to its own layer. So I have it selected, I'm going to hit M, and then I'm going to move it to the second layer. And there's no, if once I hit Shift and pull them both up, there's no visual change. And you can see at this point the only thing I have in this layer is the light. The other thing I want to move to this layer is the ceiling. So I'm going to grab the ceiling, hit and remove, go, and now I have these two on one layer and this on the other layer, just getting illuminated. So what we can do is there's a feature now that I have both these layers on, is if I select the bounce light and I go to its settings, let's go, and I basically go to it, there's an option that says this layer only, which basically means the light will only illuminate things on this layer. And if I do that, all of a sudden you can see it toggle off, and the only thing that's getting illuminated is the ceiling. So that's something that we can play with, and then you can do the energy separately for that as well as far as what you want to do. So different ways to kind of play around with this and get different results depending on what you want, but you want to separate those out. And now at this point, the only thing that's illuminated is the basic lamp. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to create a light that's just going to illuminate the side of the lamp, because we're getting a little illumination on the bottom, but we're not getting any on the sides. So I'm going to grab the lamp. I'm going to move the lamp to its own layer and pull that up so we can still see it. And then I'm going to grab, well, I can do a new light, or I'm just going to grab this light, Shift D, it up, and then move it to this layer. Now let's see what's going on with this layer. See it now? Now I have a light, and what I want to do with that light is to move it around so that I get, now it's not shining specular. We want it to shine specular so we get the sheen. So that's what's going to give the realism to the lamp. And then you can see as I move this around, and as I move it up and down, it changes where the specular highlight is. And then we can also play around with decreasing or determining how bright we want it. And this, make sure this is to layer only. And we're going to rename this one to lamp fill light. And now if we pull up the other layers together, now we have everything all together. Go to render that image, and now we have something. Now you can see the specularity is a little high. Some of that has to do with the material, but also we can decrease the energy and adjust that to get that to look a little bit more realistic. Now the other thing I didn't mention the last time that I want to show you in this one is in order to submit to give this rendering to someone, you have to save it. So if you go to image, you can do save as image, and the default's to a PNG. And you can see you can also do other things. You can save it as black and white. You can include an alpha channel and bit depth. For the time being, I just recommend using a JPEG, even though you're losing data, but it's fine. And you can bring the quality all the way up. It's not going to make much of a difference. And then you would just simply come in and say, save as image. Now if I minimize out and minimize this, you'll see if I open up preview, you can see there's my rendering. So that's basically how you save those and export it. So that's the end of demo 2.